Can Nigeria's anti-corruption agency be truly independent if the president can tell it when it can stop an investigation? And if the president can intervene to stop an investigation, will the president also not be able to order the agency to begin an investigation? And if the president intervenes to protect an election from possible federal interference, does that strengthen democracy or expose how easily the anti-corruption machinery can be controlled? Welcome to the other side. I'm Rimamnde Shawulu. On August 5, 2026, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission said it obtained a court order freezing an account belonging to the Osun State Government. According to the EFCC, the action was connected to an investigation into an alleged swindling of approximately 11 billion naira in ecological funds, intervention funds, and allocations from the Federation account. The Commission said its investigation began in March 2026. It also said Osun's Accountant General and other officials of the state government had been questioned. The immediate trigger, according to the EFCC, was the discovery of what it described as a huge and suspicious transfers from August 2nd into several corporate accounts. The EFCC therefore said it placed a post-no debit restriction on the government account, claiming that it had to prevent further movement of public funds. These are mere allegations, of course. No court order, no judgment, no investigation has yet established that Osun State officials stole or diverted the said money. The Osun State government, of course, as expected, rejected these allegations. It described the account restriction as unlawful and politically motivated. It further claimed that the action was intended to prevent the payment of palliative to workers before the August 15 election, an action which the state government, by implication, claims that was meant to affect the outcome of the elections. It also alleged that former governor of the state and now minister of the blue economy, Gboyega Oyetola, influenced the action of the EFCC. Those claims, too, have not been independently established. And then on August 6, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu intervened. In an extraordinary public statement, the president said he was deeply embarrassed, not by the fact that the EFCC had exercised its mandate or obtained a court order according to it, but by the timing. He said Osun State was only a few days away from a governorship election and that nothing should be done to create the impression that a federal agency was being used to influence that election. The president then directed the EFCC to return to court, vacate the order, and discontinue its actions against the Osun State government. Of course, that decision may have prevented a potentially destabilizing intervention in an election, but it has also created a profound contradiction. The president said he believes anti-corruption agencies must operate without political interference. In the same statement, he politically intervened to revise an operational decision taken by one of those agencies. To understand the problem, we must separate three issues. First, was the EFCC right to investigate? Yes, of course. The EFCC Act gives the Commission broad authority to investigate economic and financial crimes, trace suspicious assets, seek court orders, and prosecute offenses within its mandate. Second, should the EFCC freeze a government account by itself? No, not indefinitely, and not simply on its own authority. In this instance, the Commission said it had obtained a court order. That is important because the order remained a judicial decision. Only another court or the same court could formally discharge or vary it. Third, did the president have an express legal power to dictate that decision? This, of course, is where the problem comes. Nothing in the EFCC Act gives the president routine operational authority to decide which investigation the Commission should commence, suspend, or discontinue. The president, of course, appoints the EFCC chairman, subject to Senate confirmation. The Commission is also structurally dependent on the federal government for funding and institutional support. This gives the presidency considerable practical influence. But political influence is not the same thing as a clearly defined legal authority or power to manage individual cases. Section 174 of Nigeria's constitution gives the Attorney General of the Federation power to institute, take over, or discontinue criminal proceedings in court. But even that power is supposed to be exercised in the interest of the public and in the interest of justice and to prevent abuse of legal process. Even in this case, the president does not have the authority. The authority belongs to the Attorney General, who is a staff or an appointee of the president and reports to the president. Supporters of the president, of course, have a strong argument. Freezing a state government account 10 days before an election could disrupt salaries, essential services, and legitimate government operations. It will also create an electoral advantage for the opposition APC, which is the party ruling at the federal level, and weaken the Accord Party at this politically sensitive moment. Even if the EFCC acted honestly, the timing affects the credibility of the action. In electoral politics, federal institutions must not only be neutral, the public must be able to see that these institutions are neutral. But of course, the opposition argument is equally powerful. The EFCC said it dictated suspicious transfers beginning on August 2nd. If investigators genuinely believe public money was being rapidly moved into questionable corporate accounts, should they have ignored the transaction simply because an election was approaching? Corruption does not become lawful during an election. If the EFCC had delayed and the money disappeared, Nigerians might have accused it of protecting political actors. But most important, of course, if a president can stop an enforcement action because of his timing, what prevents another president or even this president from stopping an investigation involving a political ally or supporter? Today, the intervention may appear to protect an opposition government. Tomorrow, the same president could use his powers to shield the governing power. And of course, people also argue that this could be what is called by way of deception. Is the president luring the Osun State Governor and his supporters into sleep so that they can come out and spring a surprise on the election day? What guarantee do you have that even the stoppage of the action is not a smokescreen, that the president and his people are playing the good cop and the bad cop in order to get at the state and take over power in Osun State? Nigeria has been here before, of course. Under President Olusegun Obasanjo, the EFCC achieved important breakthroughs and brought corruption into national discussion. But Human Rights Watch documented allegations that the commission acted selectively against presidential opponents. The most prominent example was Vice President Atiku Abubakar during the political struggle preceding the 2007 election. An EFCC-related administrative indictment was used in an attempt to exclude Atiku from the presidential ballot. The Supreme Court ultimately cleared the path for him to contest. Human Rights Watch also reported that some political figures opposed to President Obasanjo faced aggressive scrutiny, while allegations involving political allies of the former president or the failed third-term project received less attention. That history does not mean every case brought by the EFCC was false. It demonstrates that legitimate investigations can lose credibility when enforcement appears selective. Under President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, the controversy moved in another direction. Less than 2 weeks after the EFCC charged former Delta State Governor James Ibori, an influential figure whose close links to the new political establishment under President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, Nuhu Ribadu, who was the chairman of the commission, was removed from the EFCC leadership and sent on a training course. Ribadu, of course, was later demoted and dismissed from the police. The government maintained that administrative procedures were being followed, but anti-corruption campaigners believe his removal was connected to sensitive investigations. Human Rights Watch described the sequence as a blow to institutional credibility. Under President Goodluck Jonathan, the EFCC continued investigating financial crimes and recovering assets, but critics complained that politically exposed cases moved slowly and rarely produced decisive consequences. President Goodluck Jonathan removed EFCC chairperson Farida Waziri in 2011, He later appointed Ibrahim Lamurde. Once again, leadership changes depended heavily on the presidency, reinforcing the belief that the commission's direction could change with the occupant of Aso Rock. Under President Muhammadu Buhari, the EFCC recorded substantial numbers of convictions and recoveries. President Buhari himself warned the commission in 2022 not to be drawn into partisan politics, but his administration also faced accusations that opposition politicians attracted aggressive investigations, much more than people or persons who were the ruling party. The public cynicism was captured fairly or unfairly by former APC National Chairman Senator Adams Oshomole in 2019, when he said that those who join the APC will have their sins forgiven. But silence and unexplained delay creates suspicion.
I would like to dance, but to be honest, Mr. President has subjected all of us to fasting today, and we have all been fasting. And when you are fasting, you don't make long speeches. But I'm told there are a lot of very, very senior people from PDP who have decided to join forces with President Buhari to take the broom to sweep away PDP and to continue to ensure that APC going to preside all over Nigeria. It includes my own brother, my friend, who comes from my own clan, Harry Duke Tenebe. He's the former organizing secretary of PDP. And we also have former vice chairman, PDP, and leader of Edo North of PDP. We also have my brother, Chief Esheshi Godwin. He's also former council chairman and my very dear friend. And we have quite a number of other leaders who have come. Tony Ilwobe. Ilwobe means I don't do bad. And in fact, once you have joined APC, all your sins are forgiven.
Under President Tinubu, the EFCC has investigated figures connected to both opposition and government personalities. The investigations of suspended Minister Betta Edu and the prosecution of former Attorney General and Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami show that the Commission does not act exclusively against opposition politicians. Well, it is ironic because the current National Security Advisor was the chairman of the EFCC, indeed the first chairman of the EFCC. And while he was the chairman of the EFCC, he appeared before a Senate committee and listed the most corrupt politicians in government then. The politicians that he listed that are very corrupt are with him today, members of the Federal Executive Council. They sit together and no one talks about the report which the EFCC chairman then, now the National Security Advisor, turned to the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, this is where the problem lies. Will the intervention in Osun improve public confidence? Some Nigerians will see a president stopping an action that could have disadvantaged an opposition-controlled state that could support Tinubu's claim that he wants a credible Osun election. But in the long term, the intervention may weaken confidence in the EFCC. The president has effectively confirmed that the agency can be instructed to abandon a cutback action, even when the commission says it is trying to prevent the movement of suspected public funds. The central question, therefore, is no longer whether the EFCC acted politically. It is now whether its decisions remain operationally independent when the president disagrees with them. Many therefore that if the president strongly disagrees with them on going after some people, they will have to follow what the president instructs. Conversely, if the president tells them to go after somebody, they will have to go after the person. The government cannot repair this problem through assurances alone. First of all, the AFCC needs to prove that it is independent. Secondly, the presidency or attorney general should publish the legal basis for the directive. Public interest should be explained through the law and evidence, not merely asserted. Third, politically sensitive account restriction close to elections should be governed by published rules. This could require stronger judicial scrutiny and safeguards for salaries and essential public services, which should not be affected by any charges or suspicion of corruption or corrupt activities. Fourth, the EFCC should regularly disclose the status of major cases, including why such cases are charged, they are closed, delayed, or discontinued. And finally, statistics should distinguish between cyber crimes from high-level public corruption, because 10,000 minor convictions cannot substitute for accountability in one major case involving powerful political figures. And so we'll come back to the question, did President Tinubu protect democracy or interfere with an independent institution? The honest answer is this, that he may have done both. He prevented a federal enforcement action from casting a shadow over an imminent state election, but he did so by demonstrating the very presidential influence that has damaged the influence and confidence in the EFCC for more than 2 decades. Neutrality cannot depend on presidential intervention in favor of the opposition today and promising not to intervene for his allies tomorrow. Real neutrality exists when the rules are clear, the evidence is disclosed where legally possible, similar cases receive similar treatment, and no president needs to telephone an agency to decide whether it should proceed or not. Until Nigeria builds that kind of system, every EFCC action will continue to generate the same question. Why this person? Why now? Who gave the order? I am Rimamnde Shawulu, and this is The Other Side. What do you think? Did President Tinubu protect the credibility of the Osun election or expose the EFCC's lack of independence? Share your views respectfully in the comment section. If you value factual, independent analysis of issues shaping Nigeria, like this video, share it, and hit the subscribe button for more episodes of The Other Side.